Secretariat is in the center of the race, Captain Blackie.
Seattle Slew moving away. It's a third with Stevie Colton showing the way by 2.5. And it's Spectacular Bit taking the lead. They're in the final furlong. It's Genuine Rescue. She's genuine.
Secretariat is in the center of the race, Captain Blackie. Secretariat. Secretariat on the outside to take the lead. It's Secretariat moving away. He has it by 2.5. That's the way it's going to lead Secretariat. He lifts it by 2 lengths.
Seattle Slew moving away. Now opens 2.5. Cutting the wire. Seattle Slew. He leads it by 2 lengths. It's a third with Stevie Colton showing the way by 2.5. A third with Steve Colton is going to win this 104th running of the Kentucky Derby. And it's Spectacular Bit taking the lead by 1.5 lengths. It's Spectacular Bit is going to win the 105th running of the Kentucky Derby. Spectacular Bit doesn't run right from the door. They're in the final furlong. It's Genuine Rescue. She's genuine. Genuine Rescue is going to win it. Genuine wins by 1.
Cortland Simmons with you here at the CS Racing Report Triple Crown Talk Series. We're now moving into prime time for the Run for the Roses, number 145 at Churchill Downs in historic Louisville, Kentucky. We're about a little less than a week away from, about 8 days out from the Run for the Roses. And a lot of things are going on to the level where obviously horses are getting in their final works either at or away from Churchill Downs. There's less than 10 horses at press time on the grounds training for the first leg of the Triple Crown. The few horses out in Florida, you know, due to the weather, and not to mention some of the training patterns that the conditioners of these horses prefer. But I'm not going to really make any prognostications or picks for the Derby until we get the post positions. That's, you know, all the speculation and the pontificating to the nth degree has, you know, been done almost ad nauseum. And so the post position is really when you can really start crunching and dissecting it a little more accurately as to what we think might happen in the Kentucky Derby. Generally, even after that, we still don't know exactly what's going to happen. We like to feel like we have a better idea of how it's all going to play out. But going into this, there are some sentiments that are being bandied about amongst the top handicappers and some bloggers, good bloggers, by the way, that are saying that this year there isn't a standout, there isn't a justifier or an American Pharaoh. And yet, you know, it's funny how when you go into these Kentucky Derby races, you know, in 2018, Randy Moss and Jerry Moss were among the first prognosticators that said, or the first practitioners that said after Justify won the Santa Anita Derby that the pace scenario he got was a base on balls, that it's not going to happen in the Kentucky Derby. He went faster in the Kentucky Derby, and then he won the Triple Crown. Jerry Bailey even went as far to say that he was all out in winning that Grade 1 in his first test against Stakes Company prior to the 2018 Derby. So, you know, going in before the gates open for the 2018 Derby, you know, everyone was looking at this being a field with depth, and then Justify. It's so convenient to say now that all of a sudden no, we don't have a standout. You know, again, last year people said it was a balanced field. It's always sort of been like that. There have been years where it's like, oh, this horse looks unbeatable, but it's no different this year. There is a possibility, and here's where I'm going with this, that I think we might have a Triple Crown bid this year. You know, people are saying, oh, there's not a standout, there's not this. Generally, in a 20-horse potential Derby field where horses are beating each other, and even horses that run the table, some people don't think it's the right horse that's won a couple graded races in a row. We always have the belief or the moniker that there isn't a standout until they open the gates. And right now, I can see already that there's 3 or 4 horses that could easily, not easily, but I think that theoretically, I think could win the Derby in the Preakness. To me, this feels a little bit like 1997 all over again with Silver Charm and Touch Gold, or Silver Charm, Captain Bodgett and Freehouse. And then Touch Gold got into the mix in the Preakness, and we had one of the better, if not the best, Triple Crown that was ever contested. So having a Triple Crown bid is exciting enough. Obviously, a horse winning the Triple Crown is the ultimate, but what's the next best thing? So I think there are a couple horses that have the ability, because these horses are going to start separating each other, and then the narrative is going to change from, well, you know, especially if a Triple Crown is, well, the horses weren't that good and he didn't beat anybody. Well, you know, it's funny. It's like the Super Bowl. It's always considered to be a marquee matchup, but historically it's been, generally a blowout or a mismatch in the end. And in this Triple Crown situation, it's a Super Bowl of, people are trying to look at all kinds of betting options, and then all of a sudden, horses we expect to run well don't run so well. We get some pleasant surprises, or it's very formful, partially, if not in totality. And I think we're going to get, just like the Super Bowl, that sort of feeling that it's a matchup. And then in the end, the horses that we thought would run well don't run so well. And then horses fall by the wayside and get off the Triple Crown trail completely, or we see them maybe try to come back in the Preakness. Generally, a lot of them may try to get the 5-week gap and prepare for the Belmont. So, that narrative is going to change. I can already tell you that people are going to start saying, well, the horses aren't that good all of a sudden. That's what's going to happen versus, and then all of a sudden we have a standout, and that horse is going to be criticized so far to the extent that people have had an all-star kind of a virtual reality in a sense of what would have happened if you put Secretariat and Big Brown and Affirmed and Seattle Slew and all these recent Kentucky Derby winners in. Someone had the nerve to say that American Pharaoh would, in his best case scenario, finish third or finish in the top 3, and Justify would finish 10th or 11th, which is the most absurd thing I've ever heard, simply because Justify ran on an off track, ran a pace scenario in the first half mile 3 seconds faster than Dortmund did when facing American Pharaoh, in a race in which Pharaoh had to be hit 32 times. He did not run his best race. The time was not particularly good on a fast racetrack. Justify ran on even a wetter track than Always Dreaming did in 2017. And so for someone to pretend to have knowledge about racing, to say something as delusional and as demented and warped as that, obviously shows that there is some sort of a syndrome, an American Pharaoh sort of syndrome of this horse, you can say nothing wrong about him, but criticisms can be levied, and the diatribe can be overwhelming as far as Justify goes. It's amazing to me. And keep in mind that time that Justify ran of 2:04.20 is typical of those kind of times on a heavier racetrack when asking 3-year-olds to go 1.25 miles. So for those of you out there, stop drinking the Kool-Aid, to quote Bill O'Reilly. Get off of the drugs that you're taking, or whatever delusional, whatever mind-altering substance is influencing your bad judgment to say these things. But again, keep in mind, these are all speculative things. We'll never know exactly what would have happened in that scenario. But as far as people saying that there isn't a standout, I think that that's really jumping the gun. It's always like that in many Derby years. It's going to be wide open, and yet some people don't see that perhaps somebody is going to emerge, and there's that opportunity for somebody to break out and bust the Triple Crown wide open, at least in the first 2 legs, and have that shot going to Elmont, New York, to Belmont Racetrack to sweep the Triple Crown. Now, whether it's won or not, that's another thing, but I think Omaha Beach has all of the tools to be able to perhaps win the Triple Crown. I also feel that way about Roadster, but I also think Game Winner is constitutionally sound enough to get through the Triple Crown. I think we'll have sparks flying in this 2019 Triple Crown.
There's a 16th of a mile to go. It's Spectacular Bid is going to win the 105th running of the Kentucky Derby. But it's going to be Affirmed. Affirmed and Steve Cawthon is going to win this 104th running of the Kentucky Derby.
It's Seattle Slew, however, that takes it over at the head of the stretch. Seattle Slew moving away. At the finish, it's going to be Seattle Slew, and he's going along easily.
Secretariat on the outside to take the lead. There, Haley in second. It's Secretariat moving away. He has it by 2.5. That's the way it's going to be Secretariat. He missed it by 2 lengths.